Low strings hum in the background, rising like the anticipation of a dawn. Imagine this paradox. We live in an age where human beings can split atoms, bend metal to our will, and manipulate electrons to carry our voices across continents at the speed of light. We have harnessed the fundamental forces of nature, just enough to build skyscrapers that scrape the clouds, spacecraft that slip the bonds of Earth, and computers that calculate faster than any brain. And yet, we cannot control our own appetites, our own divisions, our own tendency to build as quickly as we destroy. We can trigger a nuclear chain reaction, yet we cannot reliably chain together cooperation across nations. We can map the genome of life, yet we still struggle to map a sustainable path for civilization. We have learned how to bend the forces of reality just enough to light our cities and warm our homes, but not enough to stop the very climate we are destabilizing with that energy. And this is the paradox of our time. Humanity stands at the threshold of cosmic power, the power to control the forces that shape reality itself, and yet we are still children in our wisdom. Pause, music softens, inviting reflection. The four fundamental forces of the universe are gravity, electromagnetism, the strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force. These invisible threads hold everything together. They govern the structure of atoms, the burning of stars, the orbit of planets, the unfolding of galaxies. They are the grammar of reality, the syntax that writes the universe. And here is the haunting thought. In the vast expanse of cosmic time, no species has ever controlled them. Stars are born and die without permission. Black holes devour without pause. Galaxies collide on scales too large for intervention. Nature has always been the only author. But now, for the first time in 4.5 billion years of Earth's history, there is a creature, us, that dares to ask, could we one day hold the pen? Could we write the story, rather than simply read it? We've already taken our first tentative steps. With electromagnetism, we've gone from harnessing sparks in amber to creating entire digital civilizations, powered by invisible waves that fill the air around us. With the strong nuclear force, we've split the atom, unleashing energies rivaling stars, sometimes to destroy, sometimes to power cities. With the weak nuclear force, we've probed the heart of radioactive decay, learning how the sun itself shines. With gravity, we've not yet controlled it, but we've learned to ride its waves, slinging spacecraft around planets, detecting ripples from colliding black holes billions of light years away. Each step has been staggering. Each step has changed what it means to be human. And yet each step has also reminded us of our fragility, that with every force we touch, we stand closer to catastrophe as well as creation. Music swells slightly, evoking both wonder and danger. So the question before us is not only scientific, but moral. Could we one day control the forces that shape reality? And if we could, should we? Would we wield such power with wisdom or with arrogance? Would we use it to sustain or to destroy? The universe is not waiting for our answer. Stars will continue to burn. Galaxies will continue to drift. Black holes will continue to consume. The cosmos will not bend for us unless we learn how to bend it. And here lies the heart of the story. The attempt to control reality is not just about science, but about responsibility. It is about whether we, fragile and temporary as we are, can rise to the level of maturity demanded by such power. It is about whether a species that once chipped stone tools in caves can one day manipulate the very fabric of space-time and survive the responsibility of doing so. This is the journey before us. From fire to fusion, from atoms to galaxies, from myth to mathematics, humanity has always reached beyond its grasp. And today, we stand again at the edge of a new horizon, asking the most daring of questions. Could we one day control the forces that shape reality itself? Music swells into a crescendo, then softens, leaving only the steady pulse of a low note like the heartbeat of the universe. The music shifts soft strings layered with deep, resonant tones, as though the very fabric of the cosmos is vibrating. When you strip the universe to its foundation, beneath the galaxies, beneath the stars, beneath even the atoms that form your body, you find only four forces, four invisible threads that weave reality together. Gravity, electromagnetism, the strong force, the weak force. They are not just abstractions of physics. They are the grammar of existence, the alphabet in which reality is written. Without them, there would be no stars, no planets, no chemistry, no life, no thought. They are the silent stagehands behind the cosmic play. And yet, though they shape everything, they remain indifferent. Gravity does not care whether it pulls a falling apple or collapses a star. The strong force does not care whether it binds protons in your body or in a bomb. These forces are not moral. They simply are. But we fragile humans have begun to touch them, to nudge them, to borrow their power. And in doing so, we have entered a dangerous pact. Because to borrow power without wisdom is to play with forces that do not forgive. Let's meet them, one by one. Gravity, the sculptor of the cosmos. Gravity is the weakest of the forces, yet it shapes the grandest structures. It pulls the Earth into orbit around the Sunday. It gathers clouds of gas into stars. It sculpts galaxies, bends light, and collapses matter into black holes. Gravity is why the universe has form at all. And yet, though we understand its rules, we cannot control it. We can ride it using gravity's slingshots to hurl spacecraft across the solar system. We can measure its ripples, detecting gravitational waves from colliding black holes billions of years ago. But we cannot turn it on or off. We cannot shield ourselves from it. We cannot bend it, except in theory. To control gravity would be to control motion itself, to control time itself. Imagine hovering cities floating above Earth, or spacecraft bending space to cross stars in weeks instead of millennia. It is the dream of science fiction and the greatest frontier of physics, but it remains elusive. Electromagnetism, the storyteller of civilization. Unlike gravity, we can control this force. Every spark, every circuit, every light bulb, every smartphone, every broadcast, all are children of electromagnetism. It is the force that allows atoms to bond into molecules, that makes chemistry possible, that lights the sun and that powers our world. Think of the leap, from rubbing amber to create static electricity, to Benjamin Franklin's kite, to Faraday's coils, to Maxwell's equations, to the wireless signals that now stitch together our digital age. Electromagnetism is no longer just a natural phenomenon. It is a language we speak, we bend it into lasers, we shape it into radio waves, we carve it into the fiber optic threads that carry our voices across oceans at the speed of light. It is the force we have learned to dance with. But even here, our mastery is fragile. The same electromagnetism that powers our world can destroy it in an instant, with solar storms that could fry our grids or pulses that could silence every network. The strong nuclear force, the binding fire of stars. At the heart of every atom lies the strong force, binding protons and neutrons together. Without it, matter itself would unravel. Stars could not burn. Chemistry could not exist. Life would be impossible. For billions of years, the strong force remained hidden, locked in the nuclei of atoms, beyond our reach. And then, in the 20th century, we pried it open. We split the atom. We unleashed a power that rivaled stars. The mushroom cloud became a new dawn of terror, reminding us that with every new force we touch, we inherit both creation and destruction. But it also offered hope. Nuclear fusion, the same process that powers the sun, could provide Earth with nearly limitless energy, safe, clean, abundant. If we can learn to harness it wisely, the strong force could light our future as surely as it lights the stars. The weak nuclear force, the quiet alchemist. Of all the forces, this one seems the least glamorous. It governs radioactive decay, the transformation of particles, the fusion processes in stars. It is the hidden hand behind the glow of the sun, and by extension, the warmth of Earth. Without the weak force, there would be no sunlight. Without sunlight, there would be no life. And though we cannot control it yet, we are beginning to understand its role in shaping everything from the birth of elements to the fate of the cosmos. Pause. The music softens, reflective, almost reverent. Together, these four forces are the canvas of existence. And here is the paradox. They are universal, eternal, unyielding, and yet fragile beings like us are learning to bend them. We have coaxed fire from atoms. We have woven electricity into networks that span the globe. We have sent spacecraft to ride the slingshot of gravity. We have mapped the very equations that govern these forces. But mastery is not control, and control is not wisdom. The question is not only whether we could one day shape reality at its deepest level, the question is whether we would be ready to accept the responsibility of doing so. Because the cosmos does not forgive arrogance. It does not bend to hubris. Every time humanity has reached for power without wisdom, we have paid the price. And the stakes now are no longer cities or empires. The stakes are planetary. The stakes are civilizational. The music swells, low drums joining, like the pulse of inevitability. So we ask again, could we one day control the forces that shape reality? The answer is not only written in physics, it is written in us. The music changes steady, rhythmic, almost tribal, as though evoking the long arc of human history. From the beginning, our species has been defined by its relationship with forces it could not fully control. The first was fire. For hundreds of thousands of years, fire was both fear and fascination. It destroyed forests, devoured homes, terrified the night. But when our ancestors learned to tame it, everything changed. Fire became warmth in the cold, light in the dark, protection from predators. It cooked our food, releasing more calories and fueling the growth of our brains. Fire was the first force we learned to borrow from the universe, and it set us on the path toward everything that followed. But fire also burned. It razed villages, consumed fields, powered weapons of war. And so the first lesson emerged. Every force humanity bends carries both creation and destruction. Then came the mastery of water and wind. We learned to harness rivers with wheels, sails with cloth, air with wings. These forces gave us agriculture, trade, exploration, flight. They expanded horizons, connected continents, lifted civilizations, and yet they also fueled conquest, exploitation, and empire. Once again, the dual nature of control revealed itself. The next great leap was electricity. For millennia, it was little more than lightning in the sky, a spark in amber. And then came Faraday, Maxwell, Tesla, Edison. Suddenly, the invisible became visible. Invisible currents became the lifeblood of civilization. Cities lit the night. Telegraphs collapsed distance. Radios and televisions stitched societies together. Later, computers and satellites created a digital nervous system around the globe. Electromagnetism became the storyteller of modernity. It gave us communication, medicine, art, knowledge, but also surveillance, propaganda, and dependency. The same current that warms our homes can black out entire nations. The same networks that connect us can divide us. The force itself is neutral. How we wield it is not. And then, in the 20th century, we pried open the atom. The strong nuclear force, hidden in the heart of matter, revealed its secret. In a blinding instant over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, humanity entered a new era. For the first time, we held in our hands a power that could annihilate not just cities, but civilization itself. The mushroom cloud was not only a weapon, it was a mirror, a reflection of our genius, our recklessness, our arrogance, our fear. But even here, hope flickered. Nuclear energy promised a world lit by the same fire that fuels the Sunday. And fusion, the dream still just beyond our reach, offers the possibility of nearly limitless, clean energy. The same force that could end us could also save us. The music swells, then softens, reverent, almost mournful. Do you see the pattern? Fire, water, wind, electricity, nuclear power. Each time, humanity has discovered a new force. Each time, it has transformed us, and each time it has demanded a question. Will we use this power with wisdom or with hubris? The pattern is clear. Control is never just control. It is always a test of responsibility. And the greater the force, the greater the responsibility. And now, we stand at the threshold of something greater still. Not fire, not electricity, not even the atom, but reality itself, gravity, electromagnetism, the nuclear forces, the fundamental grammar of existence. Could we one day control them? Perhaps. Should we? That depends not on physics, but on philosophy. Not on equations, but on ethics. Not on whether we can, but on whether we deserve to. The music deepens a slow, ominous rhythm, like a heartbeat, because here is the truth. The universe does not care whether we survive. Stars will burn, galaxies will spin, black holes will consume, whether or not humanity is here to watch. But if we aspire to control the forces of reality, we must first prove we can control ourselves. Otherwise, the tragedy will not be that we failed to master the universe. The tragedy will be that we mastered it and destroyed ourselves with the power we could not wield wisely. The music shifts lighter now, with a sense of curiosity and wonder, as though the future itself is peeking over the horizon. Let's imagine for a moment, let's allow ourselves to dream of what control might actually mean. Gravity. We cannot yet bend gravity, but what if one day we could? Imagine spacecraft that don't burn fuel, but instead surf gravitational fields the way a bird rides the wind. Imagine cities hovering above Earth, held aloft not by steel and concrete, but by the controlled curvature of space-time itself. Imagine medicine that uses gravity to manipulate blood flow, or energy systems that borrow from the same force that binds planets in orbit. To control gravity would be to control motion and time itself, because Einstein taught us that gravity and time are two sides of the same cosmic coin. To bend gravity might be to bend the clock. Electromagnetism. Here, we already hold enormous power, but we've only scratched the surface. Imagine entire societies wired with wireless energy. No need for grids or fossil fuels. Imagine controlling the electromagnetic spectrum so precisely that communication becomes instantaneous across planets. Imagine medical science reaching into the body with waves that heal rather than harm. And beyond communication and medicine, imagine the ability to manipulate light itself, to cloak objects from sight, to bend images like illusions, to sculpt reality as though it were art. The strong nuclear force. This is the fire of stars, the glue of matter. To master it fully would mean a new dawn for civilization. Controlled nuclear fusion could provide virtually limitless clean energy, ending the cycle of scarcity that fuels so much conflict. Imagine entire cities powered by reactors as small as a room, safe and sustainable. But it goes deeper. Mastery of the strong force might allow us to build matter itself, to take raw particles and assemble them into new materials. Imagine printing entire structures from the fabric of existence, atom by atom, like sculpting with the very building blocks of the universe. The weak nuclear force, the quiet alchemist of reality. It governs radioactive decay, the transmutation of particles. To harness it would mean not only energy, but mastery over the elements themselves. Imagine turning waste into fuel, toxins into harmless material, scarcity into abundance. Imagine literally redesigning the periodic table to our needs, shaping chemistry from the inside out. The weak force is subtle, but its control could rewrite biology, medicine, and technology in ways we can barely conceive. The music swells gently, adding a sense of both awe and unease. This is not just science fiction. These are real extrapolations of the forces we already know exist. And every one of them carries the same double edge, the power to build, the power to destroy. So let us ask, what kind of civilization would we be if we controlled these forces? Physicist Nikolai Kardashev once proposed a scale of civilizations based on their energy use. A Type 1 civilization harnesses all the energy of its planet. A Type 2 civilization harnesses the energy of its star. A Type 3 civilization harnesses the energy of its entire galaxy. We are at best a Type 0.7 civilization. Not yet planetary. Still burning fossil fuels dug from the ground. Still quarreling over resources. still poisoning the very world that sustains us. But if we were to control the forces of reality, we could leap toward type 1 as civilization, not defined by scarcity, but by abundance. Not defined by survival, but by stewardship. Pause. The music softens, reflective again. But here is the paradox. To control reality would not free us from responsibility. It would multiply it. Because when the forces in your hands are cosmic, the consequences of your choices are cosmic as well. A civilization that could bend space-time, sculpt matter, and weave energy would face the ultimate question: will we use this power to flourish or to fall? Will we create or will we consume? Will we write a story of meaning or of hubris? Because the forces themselves do not care. Gravity does not care whether it binds planets or collapses them. The strong force does not care whether it fuels a star or a weapon. These forces are indifferent. It is we who must supply the meaning, and that perhaps more than the physics itself is the challenge before us. The music swells, a slow crescendo of hope and uncertainty. Could we one day control the forces that shape reality? Yes, perhaps. But the greater question is, could we one day control ourselves? The music grows darker, heavier, a deep hum building, under the narration, the sound of inevitability pressing down. It is easy to dream of bending gravity, weaving light, sculpting matter. It is easy to imagine ourselves as masters of cosmic forces, architects of reality itself. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Before we can control the universe, we must first control ourselves. Right now, we are not failing because gravity is too strong or electromagnetism too wild. We are failing because inequality grows while resources shrink. We are failing because knowledge is abundant, but wisdom is scarce. We are failing not at physics, but at philosophy. Consider this: we already have the power to transform our world. The sun pours down on Earth more energy in a single hour than humanity uses in a year. The forces of electromagnetism are sufficient to give every person light, warmth, connection. The strong nuclear force could, in theory, give us clean fusion energy for millennia. The weak force whispers of future alchemy that could eliminate scarcity entirely. And yet people still starve. Wars still rage. The climate destabilizes under the weight of our short-sightedness. We already command more force than any generation before us, and still we stumble at the most basic test, using it wisely. The music softens, a piano note, repeating like a question, echoing in silence. So the question, could we one day control the forces that shape reality, becomes inseparable from another. Could we one day control the forces within ourselves? Our greed, our fear, our tribalism, our arrogance. History shows what happens when technology outruns wisdom. Fire forged civilization, but also fueled conquest. Gunpowder expanded empires, but also destroyed them. Nuclear power offered limitless energy, but became synonymous with annihilation. Again and again, the pattern repeats. Our reach exceeds our responsibility. And now, as we stand at the threshold of forces even greater, the stakes are no longer cities or empires. The stakes are planetary, civilizational, perhaps even cosmic. The music swells again, strings rising, a slow, steady crescendo of urgency. So maybe the real test of humanity is not whether we can bend space-time or sculpt atoms. Maybe the real test is whether we can build a civilization wise enough to handle such power if or when it comes. Because the universe does not ask whether we are ready. It does not pause for us to mature. The forces are already here. Fire burns, whether we use it for warmth or for war. Atoms split, whether we use them for light or for death. The same will be true of whatever forces we unlock next. The responsibility is ours. It always has been. And here lies the paradox once more. The more power we gain, the more fragile our survival becomes. The closer we stand to cosmic mastery, the closer we stand to self-destruction. Pause. The music softens, as if offering the audience space to reflect. But fragility is not weakness. Fragility is what makes responsibility sacred. And awareness of that fragility is what can guide us forward. So yes, we may one day control the forces that shape reality. But first, we must learn to control the forces that shape humanity. The music shifts again, a steady build of strings and low percussion, like the gathering of a storm, rising towards something immense. The question has always been there. Every fire lit, every tool sharpened, every equation written has been a way of asking, can we shape reality itself? And slowly, step by step, we have answered. Fire gave us mastery over night. Agriculture gave us mastery over hunger. Electricity gave us mastery over distance. The atom gave us mastery over energy. Each force we touched transformed us, and each one came with a choice: to create or to destroy. And now, for the first time in cosmic history, a species stands on the edge of something greater. We have begun to detect the tremors of space-time itself. We have harnessed the binding energy of stars. We have woven the electromagnetic spectrum into a nervous system that spans the globe. We have written equations that describe the grammar of the cosmos. We are no longer just asking what reality is. We are asking if we might one day shape it. The music rises, a swelling chorus entering softly, like voices echoing from the cosmos. But the story is not only cosmic, it is also human. Because while we ask these grand questions, Earth trembles under the weight of our negligence. Forests vanish, oceans warm, the atmosphere changes. The very systems that sustain life, delicate balances of chemistry, climate, and biodiversity, strain against our recklessness. And here lies the greatest irony. We dream of controlling the forces that shape galaxies, yet we struggle to control the forces destabilizing our own planet. The space race of the last century showed us how far we could reach. We placed footprints on the moon. We touched other worlds with robotic hands. We glimpsed Earth from the outside, a fragile blue marble hanging in the void. That moment gave us perspective. It reminded us that this planet, not the moon, not Mars, not some distant star system, is the rarest jewel we know. The next space race, the one unfolding, now must show us something more. Not how far we can reach, but how deeply we can care. Because what good is bending space-time if we cannot first protect the thin atmosphere that shields us? What good is sculpting matter if we cannot first stop poisoning the rivers that sustain us? What good is dreaming of infinite universes if we cannot sustain the one world that gives us life? The music swells louder now, brass joining, the sound of urgency and possibility intertwined. So the question, could we one day control the forces that shape reality, is not only about physics, it is about philosophy. It is about morality. It is about whether we as a species can rise to the responsibility of awareness. The forces themselves do not care. Gravity will continue to bind planets whether we endure or vanish. The strong force will continue to power stars whether we flourish or fail. The universe will go on, indifferent to our story. But we, for this brief flicker of cosmic time, we care. We ask questions, we dream, we wonder, we imagine, and in that imagination lies our truest power. The music reaches a crescendo, choir now swelling into full harmony, like the sound of the cosmos itself breathing. So perhaps the real answer is this. Yes, we may one day control the forces that shape reality, but even if we don't, we already control the one force that matters most: choice. We can choose to destroy or to preserve. We can choose arrogance or humility. We can choose to treat this universe as indifferent or to fill it with meaning through how we live. Because permanence is an illusion. Stars die. Galaxies drift apart. Even the fabric of space-time itself may unravel. But meaning is not an illusion. Meaning is created every time we choose care over neglect, awe over apathy, responsibility over arrogance. The music peaks in a final luminous crescendo, then softens, leaving only a single sustained note, like a heartbeat echoing into silence. So when the universe asks, could you control the forces that shape me? Let our answer not be measured in technology alone. Let it be measured in wisdom, in responsibility, in care. And when our time is over, when the stars fade, when horizons close, may it be said that in the brief flicker of awareness we were given, we chose not only to ask the question, but to live the answer. The final note fades. Silence. Screen to black. The music shifts a single piano note repeating gently, soft strings weaving in, like the sound of memory. So what does all of this mean? Not for civilizations, not for galaxies, but for you. Because when we speak of controlling the forces that shape reality, it's easy to imagine laboratories, governments, and spacecraft, but it's harder to imagine what it means on the scale of a single human life. And yet, it is here in the scale of the everyday that meaning truly resides. Think of it this way. Every life has its own forces of reality, invisible, constant, shaping everything you do. Gravity holds you to the earth, yes, but so too does responsibility hold you to your community. Electromagnetism connects particles, yes, but so too does empathy connect people. The strong nuclear force binds protons in atoms, but love, trust, and cooperation bind us in families, in societies, in nations. The weak force allows stars to shine by changing particles into something new. And isn't that what growth is? Isn't that what learning does, transforming who you are into who you can become? You may never bend space-time. You may never ignite a star in your hands, but you already live by the same truths the universe does. You already participate in the forces that hold meaning together. And so the lesson is not abstract. It is intimate. It is personal. To control reality at the cosmic scale may be centuries away, but to shape reality at the human scale, that power is already yours. The music swells slightly, warm and hopeful, like sunrise. When you choose kindness, you are shaping reality. When you choose truth over ignorance, you are shaping reality. When you choose to care for this fragile earth, its air, its oceans, its forests, you are shaping reality. When you choose responsibility over indifference, awe over apathy, humility over arrogance, you are shaping reality. And those choices ripple outward, just like gravity ripples space-time. They spread, just like light spreads across the darkness. They accumulate just like stars gather into galaxies. So when you hear the question, could we one day control the forces that shape reality? Don't wait for some distant tomorrow. Don't wait for some future technology. Don't wait for some civilization yet to come. Begin with the forces you already hold. Begin with the horizon of your own life, because meaning is not written in the stars. Meaning is written in choices. The music deepens, one last gentle crescendo strings, brass and choir together, not triumphant, but luminous, like the glow of starlight seen from Earth. And in the end, perhaps that is the true answer. Yes, we may one day control the forces that shape galaxies, stars, and space-time itself. But the greater question, the eternal question, is whether we will control the forces that shape ourselves. And if we can do that, if we can live wisely within our brief horizon, filling it with wonder, responsibility, and care, then we will not just have asked the question, we will have lived the answer. The music fades, leaving only silence, the silence of the cosmos, vast and infinite, waiting for us to choose. Chapter 1. The opening paradox, our power, our fragility. We begin with the contradiction of our time. Humanity can split atoms and manipulate genomes, yet still struggles with war, inequality, and ecological collapse. We hold forces that rival stars, yet cannot master our own instincts. This paradox sets the stage. We stand on the edge of cosmic power, but remain fragile in wisdom. Chapter 2, the four forces, the grammar of the cosmos. Introduce gravity, electromagnetism, the strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force. not as equations, but as cosmic characters, the sculptor, the storyteller, the fire of stars, the quiet alchemist, show how each shapes the universe and how humanity has begun, tentatively, to borrow their power. Chapter 3, humanity's first forces, fire, water, wind. Step back into history. Fire is the first harnessed force. Warmth, light, protection, but also destruction. Water and wind is the next. Wheels, sails, agriculture, exploration. Each discovery was double-edged, carrying creation and conquest. Show that power has always demanded responsibility. Chapter 4, the age of electromagnetism. From lightning in the sky to Faraday's coils, Maxwell's equations, and Tesla's visions. How electricity and magnetism rewrote civilization, creating a world of light, communication, and connectivity, but also how electromagnetism brought dependence, vulnerability, and new dangers. A reminder, every force mastered comes with new risks. Chapter 5, the nuclear dawn. The strong force unlocked, Hiroshima and Nagasaki as the warning, fusion as the hope. Show how mastering the nucleus gave us the power to end civilizations, but also the possibility of ending scarcity. The nuclear age became humanity's mirror. Both our genius and our arrogance revealed in one flash of light. Chapter 6, the weak force and the sun itself. How the weak nuclear force allows stars to shine, elements to form, life to exist. It is subtle, invisible, often overlooked. Yet without it, Earth would be a frozen rock. Here, reflect on how often the most fragile forces shape the most profound outcomes in physics, in society, in ourselves. Chapter 7, speculation. A civilization of cosmic engineers? What if humanity learned to control these forces fully? Gravity harnessed to bend space-time, electromagnetism sculpted into wireless energy grids, strong force fusion powering cities, weak force transmutation ending scarcity. Explore the Kardashev scale type 1, 2, 3 civilizations. Where would such power take us? To utopia or to ruin? Chapter 8, the real horizon ourselves. Shift tone, remind the audience, the real barrier is not physics, but philosophy. Humanity already has enough power to end hunger, end poverty, stabilize the climate, yet we fail to use it. The problem is not whether we can control forces. The problem is whether we can control ourselves. Chapter 9, the space race from distance to depth. Connect history. The space race of the 20th century showed us how far we could reach, the moon, Mars, the outer planets, but the new space race must show us how deeply we can care. Earthrise, Apollo, and Cassini gave us perspective. The next chapter must give us responsibility. Chapter 10, the finale, power, fragility, and meaning. Bring everything together, the universe will go on indifferent, stars will burn, galaxies will drift, the forces will endure. But meaning does not come from permanence, it comes from participation, from awareness, from responsibility. We may one day bend space-time, ignite stars, sculpt matter, but the truest power we hold is choice. Chapter 11, the epilogue, horizons within. Turn inward. Each person has their own forces of reality, empathy, kindness, truth, responsibility. Just as gravity shapes planets, these forces shape lives. Remind the listener that cosmic mastery begins with human mastery, and that the truest way to shape reality is through the choices we make today. The music swells into a luminous crescendo, strings, choir, and brass together, before fading into silence, leaving only the echo of the question itself. Could we one day control the forces that shape reality? Perhaps. But the real question is, will we control the forces that shape ourselves? The screen is black. A low hum rises faint at first, like the vibration of the cosmos itself. Slowly, a single point of light emerges. A narrator's voice begins, calm but resonant. Imagine this paradox. We live in an age when human beings can detect the trembling of space-time caused by black holes colliding 1 billion light years away. We can watch the faint flicker of galaxies so distant their light began its journey before Earth itself even formed. We can simulate the birth of the cosmos on supercomputers, mapping out the first seconds after the Big Bang with equations written in chalk. And yet we still struggle to measure the trembling in our own society. We argue over borders. We quarrel over resources. We fight over ideologies. We are capable of building machines of staggering power, yet often incapable of building bridges of understanding. Think about the tools in your pocket. That small rectangle of glass and metal you call a phone is more powerful than the computers that guided astronauts to the moon. It can connect you instantly to nearly any corner of the world. It can call forth centuries of human knowledge in seconds. It can capture images, broadcast voices, map planets, but how often is it used instead to spread misinformation, to argue over things we already disagree on, or to distract us from the very world it connects us to? This is the paradox of our age. We wield forces that rival the stars, and yet we remain fragile in wisdom. The music swells slightly, strings rising like a slow sunrise. Consider fire, the first force humanity tamed. A creature, once fearful of the dark, discovered a way to carry light in its hands. Fire changed everything. It gave warmth, protection, nourishment. It lengthened the day, expanded the night, gave safety from predators. It fueled our survival and ignited our imagination. But it also burned. It destroyed forests. It razed villages. It consumed as easily as it preserved. Fire was a gift, but also a warning. This pattern has never changed. Every force we learn to control carries this duality. It brings both creation and destruction. When we mastered the winds and waters, sails carried us across oceans to new worlds. But those same ships carried conquest, war, and exploitation. When we mastered electricity, cities lit the night for the first time in human history. But that same electricity carried dependence, vulnerability, and danger. When we mastered the atom, we touched the very fire of stars. But the mushroom cloud over Hiroshima reminded us, with every force comes a choice. And so, here we are, standing on the threshold of a new question. Could we one day control the very forces that shape reality itself? Gravity, the sculptor of galaxies. Electromagnetism, the storyteller of civilizations. The strong nuclear force, the binding fire of stars. The weak nuclear force, the quiet alchemist of transformation. These are the four pillars upon which reality rests. They are universal, eternal, unyielding. They do not ask for permission. They do not bend to morality. They simply are. And yet fragile creatures on a pale blue dot have begun tentatively to borrow their power, to bend sparks into light, to split atoms into fire, to weave electricity into networks that wrap the globe, to measure the faint ripples of gravity itself, as if eavesdropping on the whispers of colliding black holes. The music deeps into a quietertonia piano note, repeating, reflective. But here lies the haunting question. Are we wise enough to wield such power? History suggests caution. Again and again, our ambition has outpaced our wisdom. We discover, we celebrate, we harness, and only later, sometimes too late, do we realize the consequences. The forests we burn for fire, the species we extinguish for expansion, the atmosphere we destabilize for energy. Each force mastered has given us power. Each force mastered has demanded responsibility, and too often, responsibility lags behind. Now, as we look forward, we are faced with something unprecedented. It is one thing to control fire, wind, water. It is another to control the atom. But to control gravity, to bend space-time, to sculpt matter at will, that is to step into the role of cosmic architect. That is to take the pen from nature and write reality itself. Pause. The music softens, giving the words space to breathe. This is why the question is not only about science, it is about philosophy. It is about morality. It is about humanity itself. Because the forces we are beginning to touch are not only greater than us, they are indifferent to us. Gravity does not care whether it binds planets or collapses them. The strong force does not care whether it fuels a star or a weapon. Electromagnetism does not care whether it lights a city or silences it. The meaning lies not in the forces themselves. It lies in how we use them. So perhaps the real question is not, could we control the forces that shape reality? The real question is, should we? And if we should, will we be ready? The music rises again, swelling with both wonder and unease, like the edge of discovery. Because here's the paradox of our moment. We are the only species in the history of the cosmos, as far as we know, that has dared to ask this question. For billions of years, stars have burned, galaxies have collided, black holes have consumed. But never before has there been a creature capable of saying, what if? What if we could bend gravity? What if we could sculpt light? What if we could ignite the fire of stars in our hands? What if we could reshape matter itself? Every step humanity has taken, from fire to fusion, has been a rehearsal for this question. And now, as we look forward, we must decide, are we rehearsing for creation or for catastrophe? Because the forces themselves will not decide. We will. The music rises, slowly strings, piano, and a low hum like the heartbeat of the universe. So here we are, a species of stardust, fragile yet ambitious, daring to ask whether we might one day control the very forces that shape the cosmos itself. Gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces the grammar of reality. For billions of years, they acted without witness, without meaning. And now, for the first time, a species has appeared not only capable of asking the question, but capable of reaching for the answer. We imagine bending space-time, igniting fusion suns in our cities, sculpting matter atom by atom. We imagine a civilization that does not merely adapt to the universe, but reshapes it. The dream is intoxicating, the possibility immense, but the forces themselves do not care. Gravity will pull whether we rise or fall. The strong force will bind whether we endure or vanish. The sun will shine with or without us. The cosmos is indifferent. And so the question is not only whether we could one day control the forces that shape reality, the question is whether we should, whether we are ready, whether we can control the forces that shape ourselves, because history has already taught us the pattern. Fire warmed us and burned us. The atom lit our cities and scarred our skies. Electromagnetism connected us and divided us. Every force we have touched has carried both promise and peril. And every time, the meaning has not come from the force, but from us, from our choices, from our wisdom, from our responsibility. The music swells higher choir, entering softly, luminous, like voices echoing from the stars. Perhaps the universe has given us this paradox on purpose, to test whether a fragile species on a fragile planet can rise to a responsibility as vast as the cosmos itself. Perhaps the truest frontier is not bending space-time, but bending our arrogance. Not splitting atoms, but mending our divisions. Not sculpting reality, but choosing meaning within it. And if we can do that, if we can learn to control the forces that shape us, then maybe, just maybe, we will be ready to control the forces that shape everything. The music reaches its crescendo brass, strings, and choir in full harmony, luminous and vast. Because permanence is an illusion. Stars will fade, galaxies will drift, even the forces themselves may one day dissolve. But meaning is not an illusion. Meaning is real. Meaning is what we create when fragile beings dare to wonder, dare to act, dare to choose responsibility in the face of indifference. And that is how we shape reality. The music fades to a single sustained note, soft as starlight. Silence follows. The screen fades to black. Could we one day control the forces that shape reality? Perhaps. But the greater truth is this: we already hold the greatest force of all, choice.